welcome. We're so excited. I am Kathy Anderson, and I'm part of the Tennessee Solar Energy Association. I'm actually physically located in Nashville, even though we cover the entire state of Tennessee. So I have with me my co-host, happens to be our president, Jason Carney. So he will be doing our first Solar Series 101.
And welcome everyone who will see this now or log into it later. We are excited to finally start this series. This is our first in what we hope to be a number of webinars that will educate you on solar in Tennessee, and hopefully you will gain something from it. So I'm going to share my screen and just start it. Okay, should be able to see everything.
Yes.
All right. So again, welcome. We are the Tennessee Solar Energy Association, and this is the first of a webinar series that we are hoping that will be very educational to anyone else. TSEA is not to be confused with Tennesseea. We are an affiliate of ACES, the American Solar Energy Society, and we work with individuals and groups around the state to accelerate an equitable transition to renewable energy and a sustainable living society. I'll give you an overview of what we hope to discuss on today. It's still morning for some, but if you're on the East Coast, it would be already past noon. But we'll just do an overview of solar PV and its importance, how it can benefit your home, business, and community, and basically what to look out for. So this is just to whet your appetite. We're not going to get into the weeds, so we're not going to deal with design considerations, things like shading and where you're located and how much roof space you have. All those things we can get into at another time, and it could vary based on where you're located. We're not going to get into local policy. We are a state organization, so what's may be in vogue for you in Memphis may not be the same in Knoxville or Chattanooga. So we'll steer clear of that this time. Not that we won't dive deep into it later, but we will steer clear of pricing on this one. I know that's the biggest thing for everybody. How much does it cost? How much does it cost? And again, not going to jump into those things at this time. We just want to give you kind of the introduction to solar energy. With that said, a little bit about me. As you know, as Kathy said, I'm the executive director of TSEA. I have the NABCEP PVIP. It's kind of the top solar license, the one that TVA requires in Tennessee to do design work. They got a number of offshoots now. They've always had the PVA, which is kind of the introductory. And so they also have the sales and testing out of solar. So I have that. And these are a couple of sites, the TSEA site, my personal Energy Electric site, and some media if you want to know a little bit more about me. What is solar power? Very easily said, it is the use of sun, basically. How we do things with the sun. So there is passive solar power and there's active solar power. Passive would be just the way you build your building and using sunlight as it comes in to provide light or provide heat, and architects, get into that quite a bit. But we're talking about active solar power. This is the power that we use to, move about, to provide light or power to our cars or things that get us moving. So we're dealing with active solar power. Here's a brief history of solar power. We've been using solar power for a long time. You remember being kids and getting the magnifying glass and finding an ant and learning how powerful the sun could be if you could get it concentrated. And that was started in the 7th century BC. And we've come all the way now in the 1900s to starting to use it to actually kind of do uh, more practical things like a solar boiler or solar water heater. And we progressed from there. Um, and then a little brief history on solar PV, which PV stands for photovoltaic. 1839 is when the world first learned about PV, how light can use elements in nature to create an electric field and start to use that for power. In 1954 is when the United States and Bell Labs first started using solar power. It does PV solar. So anytime I'm talking solar from now on, we're talking solar PV. Started to use solar for um, solar type equipment. And then we started to progress from there. In the 1970s is when we started producing solar cells like you see in solar panels today. But they're very expensive. And it was like $100 a watt. That's pretty insane compared with today's prices. Now it is much better than $20 a watt. And that can be attributed to the industry just growing and the proliferation of solar, excuse me, as well as the Sunshot Initiative that had a goal of reducing the price of solar. So solar cells are not as expensive as they used to be. A lot of older people that I talk with are used to those 1970 prices, so they still think it's just way too expensive to afford, but not today. It's a little more affordable, or a lot more affordable than it was in the 1970s. Solar PV is, again, as I said, photovoltaic. It is the science of converting light into electricity. And we'll look at that here shortly, but there are other uses of light into electricity, or other ways of using the sun's power to get electricity. There's concentrated photovoltaic, that's CPV. There is thermal PV, and again, that's another one that I hear more of from the 70s, where we put collectors on people's houses and had water running through it, and the sun would heat up that water and would use it for water heaters. Don't see that as much today, but that's solar thermal. So a lot of times when we talk solar power, older people are thinking we're talking solar thermal, but we're talking solar PV, converting light into electricity. So there's CSP, that's concentrated solar power, and then there's BIPV, which is building integrated photovoltaics. So we're going to be talking just kind of your normal panel solar power today. The PV effect. This is what I like to call the magic. We think that it's so, how does this work? You just put these panels out and you get power from it. And it's like, yeah, it seems like magic, but it's really just, regular chemistry. You've got a semiconductor like silicone. There, people use other semiconductors, but silicone is the most commercially available. You've got a semiconductor like silicone that's quote unquote doped on both sides. One side is phosphorus and the other side is boron. And the way they are chemically made up, they are both on our periodic table of elements. They're naturally occurring elements in our world. And the way they're made, one wants an electron just naturally, and one wants to give away an electron naturally. So when you put them in the same space together on that semiconductor, they just start to let nature take its course. An electron moves from one side to the other. And so when that happens, um, it becomes static because that's what nature always wanted. Nature always wants balance. So they come together, they balance out by moving the electrons from one side to the other, and then they're stuck in balance. Well, if you're going to get that electricity to keep moving, something else has got to happen. And that's where the sun comes in. The sun sends photons down and knocks those electrons back into motion, back freed up, so that on the side that gave the electron, it now has open space for an electron to be received, and it flows back over there. So it just keeps doing that because of the photons coming from the sun. And then we stick wires in that path, and then those electrons have to travel through those wires, and then we use that to power our devices. So it's really a very simple thing that they learned many years ago about how nature wants to stay in balance, and then one natural element wants to give, another one wants to receive, and then the sun can make them continue to do that process if there is a path for them to do that. So there, you see those lines in the solar panels, those are junctions or PN junctions for that motion to happen. There's a little diagram here you see that talks about that. And then there's a video, and we'll go ahead and run that video. It basically says the same thing.
We all know that the sun's energy creates heat and light, but it can also be converted to make electricity, and lots of it. One technology is called solar photovoltaics, or PV for short. You've probably seen PV panels around for years, but recent advancements have greatly improved their efficiency and electrical output. Enough energy from the sun hits the Earth every hour to power the planet for an entire year. Here's how it works. You see, sunlight is made up of tiny packets of energy called photons. These photons radiate out from the sun, and about 93 million miles later, they collide with a semiconductor on a solar panel here on Earth. It all happens at the speed of light. Take a closer look, and you can see the panel is made up of several individual cells, each with a positive and a negative layer, which create an electric field. It works something like a battery. So the photons strike the cell, and their energy frees some electrons in the semiconductor material. The electrons create an electric current, which is harnessed by wires connected to the positive and negative sides of the cell. The electricity created is multiplied by the number of cells in each panel, the number of panels in each solar array. Combined, a solar array can make a lot of electricity for your home or business. This rooftop solar array powers this home, and the array on top of this warehouse creates enough electricity for about 1,000 homes. Okay, there are some obvious advantages to solar PV technology. It produces clean energy. It has no emissions, no moving parts. It doesn't make any noise, and it doesn't need water or fossil fuels to produce power. And it can be located right where the power is needed, in the middle of nowhere, or it can be tied into the power grid. Solar PV is growing fast, and it can play a big role in America's clean energy economy, anywhere the sun shines.
All right, so hopefully I said the same thing that you just heard there, that it all is not overly magic. It's just a little bit of science. So not dangerous. It's not, like other forms of energy that we have to deal with a whole lot of toxic waste and just a whole lot of things that aren't natural. Very natural reactions occur here, and we get power from it. So, like he said, enough solar energy falls on the Earth in 1 hour that can power our planet for a whole year. So, it's just the most abundant source of power that we have on the planet. That huge reactor we have in the sky. And as was mentioned in the video, just a lot of benefits. It's reliable. I always say that if the sun goes out, then you got bigger problems than your panel's not producing power. So every day. It rises in the east and sets in the west, whether there's clouds up there or not, the sun's there. So we're not concerned with a scarcity of the resource like we are in others. Security, I mean, when you're talking about something as big as geopolitical politics and things that are increasingly an issue, everyone has access to the sun. No one is some have more than others. Those that are closer to the equator get more sunlight, but we all have access to it. So it's really about harnessing it, and we don't have to go and trade and bargain with any other country or any other person to get this resource. So it gives us some security, allows us to be independent. If we want to power our homes or businesses or our communities, we can do that. We don't need to ask anybody or get any permission, because again, the sun's there for everyone. Of course, the big one, everyone likes is it saves you money. I mean, as I always say, if that much power is falling from the sky every day, then why is my loved ones paying $300 and $400 on their light bill? So we don't have to feel prisoner to our power bills if we learn about solar power and other forms of renewable energy. It can save us quite a bit of money. Creates jobs. You can't outsource solar to 3,000 miles away. It's just it doesn't work out financially. So it's going to create jobs, and it's going to create jobs generally where the project is going in. So that's always a good thing. And of course, reduces global warming. Again, we're not, the lifespan of a solar panel has to be made, of course, and so there is some the process of how it is made is sometimes using conventional methods and conventional power, but the next 20 to 30 years or more, it's just sitting there stationary, and it's not putting anything else into the atmosphere. Completely renewable, completely clean energy. Those are the benefits, but we also have to deal with the realities and the challenges. And so the reality for us here in Tennessee is that we have one utility, and that is the, as I capitalize THE, that is the Tennessee Valley Authority. TVA has been around for almost 90 years now, and they were created out of FDR's New Deal so that we could electrify the Tennessee Valley. Back in those days, we were very, it's funny, we're very dependent upon the sun for work, because when the sun went down, especially in rural areas of the valley, then work had to end. But this technology of transmitting electricity over long distances, that technology had been out for a while with Westinghouse and Edison and Tesla. And so with that technology being out there, being able to move electricity over long distances, it was determined that, everyone needed, this benefit. So TVA was created out of that, and it electrified the valley, provided a lot of work for a lot of people. But to give TVA enough space to grow and to be the benefit to the valley that they intended, they also said no one else can sell power in the valley. So TVA has no competitors, and that's a federal law. It's the TVA Act, as a matter of fact. So to change anything in TVA is literally an act of Congress. It's not a hyperbole. So we should, it's good to understand who our utility is, because as we put in solar panels, to our homes, we have to interconnect with the grid, unless it's, remotely rural, or a log cabin or something like that. Most of us are having to interconnect with our breaker box, and that connects us with the grid. That brings in the utility. Now, we don't really see TVA, quote unquote, all the time, because they don't sell directly to us. They sell to 154, 155 local power companies. You'll hear that being called LPCs. And so here in Nashville, that looks like Nashville Electric Service, NES. In Memphis, that's Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, MLGW. And Knoxville, that is KUB, Knoxville Utilities Board. And then Chattanooga is EPB. And then that's just 4 or 5 of the 154. So it's all kind of other LPCs around the state. And as you can see in the picture, I think I'll see if I can zoom in. Yeah. There are many distributors, LPCs. Those are the same thing. So distributors equals LPCs for the most part. And there's a lot of them. And as you can see, TVA's fence, as we call it, the area wherein no one else can sell power, touches 7 total states, most of Tennessee, and then a large portion of Mississippi, a good bit of north part of Alabama, and then southern Kentucky, and it touches a little bit of a couple other states as well. So we should, like I said, we should definitely understand TVA, although our interactions are with our LPCs as homeowners and businesses. There is no Public Utilities Commission. They have a board that is appointed by the President of the United States and then confirmed by the Senate. Again, when we talk to other people around the country, they have some type of recourse if they want to get things changed. They have a Public Utilities Commission, but we have to go to the board, the TVA board, to get our request heard. So again, got to know who they are. So TVA makes electricity. That's what a utility, electric utility does. They make the electricity. The LPCs just distribute it down to us. But a quick little review of what electricity is. Electric power is a rate. It's the speed at which something moves. In this case, electric power or electromagnetic fields. And as a mathematician, that's P equals VI. When I'm teaching students, I say, this is what I want you to go to sleep with and wake up and dream about at night. P equals VI. It's fundamental to electricity. Power equals voltage times amps. And you'll see I representing amps, and sometimes you'll see A representing amps. It'll be P equals VA or P equals VI. And then power is measured in watts. So watts is our measurement of power. We use so much watts that we typically talk in kilowatts. So on your electric bill, you will see how many kilowatts you used. And that's a kilo is 1,000, and so a kilowatt is 1,000 watts. That was the technical approach. This is the non-technical approach. This is to help you understand how power works. You've got voltage, which is electromotive force, or you could look at it as pressure. And then you've got amps, which is, the speed at which the voltage moves. And then you've got ohms. And so, again, when I talk about this, I talk about if Mr. Ohm up there, he's our resistance. If Mr. Ohms is as strong as The Rock or Hulk Hogan, whomever is the strongest man alive, if he's that strong and pulls with all his might, then the amps can't move at all. And so the way that looks in real life is that a cord has been cut because air is total resistance. There is no flow if there is air between two circuits. So that is, we call it an open circuit if Mr. Ohm is super strong. If Mr. Ohm is super weak, he can't resist anything, then we call that a short circuit. And that's not good either. That means Mr. Volt is able to just push unimpeded. And so something as simple as the volume on your radio or your phone or wherever is you're turning it up and down is you becoming Mr. Ohm. You're either releasing Mr. Ohm so that your volume is loud, or you are strengthening Mr. Ohm so that your volume is lower. So that's again a little picture. Some people like me, we like to see it in pictures, and it gives you a technical and non-technical approach to power. TVA makes power, and then they have to send it to us. And this is kind of how that looks for TVA and any other utility. They make it up at the generating station, and then it has to kind of be throttled up so that it can move. A lot of pressure has to be created so it can move quickly. So they step it up to 500 kilovolts or 500,000 volts. So when you see those things when you're driving down the interstate or somewhere, you know that's a lot of power, a lot of pressure in those lines. And then it gets down to the local area, and they step it down. It will make it to the distributor, and then the distributor will step it down at his substation or her substation, and then it's sent to our homes as 120 to 240 volts. So you can just see that process is pretty complicated when you have central power, meaning all the power is coming from one place. It has to be stepped up and then stepped all the way down to 120, or 240 volts. Everything in your home is running on 120 or 240. And so again, with that kind of operation, it's pretty inefficient. Most of the power or the energy is lost just in the making. So when we're using oil or coal or some other fossil fuel, just to make the power, you lose up to 70% of that heat energy, of that energy through heat. And then you lose a little more through transmission. And so by the time it makes it to our homes, we're getting, let's say, 25% of what was burned up or what was used to make the energy. So basically, if you get a watt at your house, it took 4 watts at the central station to make it. You're getting just a quarter, or we are getting just a quarter of what it took to make that watt. Wrong button there. Hope this is making sense, and we're learning something. So again, that's the history of where we come from, and we're trying to move into what we call distributed energy resources instead of central power. And that's what solar is. It's distributed. You can have it right where you are, and you're not going to, the panels themselves are in the range of 18 to 25% efficient. That's just your standard. But once that power is made and it's makes it to you from the panels, you may not lose, but maybe 1% in the transmission. Inverters are very efficient in getting the power from the panels into our homes. And again, unfortunately, if we're using central power and we have a storm and a tree 3 miles away falls on the right line, my power is out at my home. And God forbid there is some type of terrorist activity and they get to a place like TVA, then you saw that map. That whole map can be affected. A whole large portions of that map can be affected. So solar is right here, right near us. We can have it on our rooftops. We could have it in our community and be shared among, 10 or 100 people. And when something happens, to the power lines 3 or 4 miles down the street, it, may or may not affect us if we have storage or something like that. So just need to understand what TVA is and what some of the challenges are. As I said in the beginning, the main things that we should be looking for as we try to adopt solar, especially rooftop solar, but solar in general, is the utility, the contractor, and incentives. That's what most people need to understand. So when I say utility, I include the LPCs. So when you're looking at a contractor, these are the things that they are dealing with. This is bracketed by safety. So it begins and it ends with safety. They should have harnesses. They should have people that are just there to kind of watch and make sure things are going well. They should have anchors on the roof that they can lock onto. That's the standard. Some people are very experienced up on that roof, so I don't want to just completely forget that. You may see people that do it differently, but this is how it should be done just to keep everybody safe. But on the roof is where your panels are. They make electricity. That power moves down to your inverters, and it changes that power from DC to AC. There is racking. This is the place where the panels sit and they are locked in to their structure, whether that's the roof or some of the substructure on the ground. And the wiring is how the electricity travels. So again, we just demystify the magic of how the power is made, and then we show you how simple it is, what components are. The knowledge of where things go is where the rubber meets the road. But it's very simple components: panels, inverters, some type of substructure like racking, wiring, and then these days batteries are more and more important. So, and then here are some of the things that we use for design. We have Project Sunroof. You could Google that, and drones and things like that help us to get an idea of what the landscape of your home or business looks like. Again, with a contractor, it's very important to get a reputable one. This industry is so new that we don't have kind of a local union that you can go to and kind of vet. So there's a lot of emphasis needs to be put on a quality contractor, not to use TVA's tagline, but TVA has a list of contractors called TVA's QCNs that you can go and look into, and these are folks that TVA is vetted to have the right credentials and the right experience to do the job. But word of mouth is always important as well. If you see someone, has solar in their business or their home, and you're able to ask them, talk to them, and see who they used and how their system is working, and just make sure that you choose the right contractor. And then there are questions that you can ask as well. ACES has a site where you can, no matter who you select, ask these questions and see what the answers are and if they're satisfactory to you. So again, who you select to install is important to the quality of the install as well as the longevity, because what I tell folks, there are not any real moving parts. The inverter converts the power, and it has a fan in there, and that's the only real moving quote unquote part in a solar array. So as a contractor, we want to do it right and then really not have to come back to it for the next 25 years. Solar panels are rated are warranted for 25 years. And the inverter is typically warranted for about 10. So if it's done correctly, barring anything environmental, just, random stuff, squirrels, all kinds of things can happen. But if you do it right, it shouldn't be something that you're thinking about. Most times you get it up there and, kind of that initial look of it, looks nice, and you start to get your bill and you're just like, wow. Within 6 months to a year, you kind of forget they're there because they do what they do and they don't provide any problem. So, again, we can dig more into all the specifics of a design and how that works at another webinar, but make sure you look into your contractor. And then the other thing that people really want to know all about is the tax incentives. How do I afford this? And so I'm just giving you some information. The big disclaimer is that I am not an accountant. I cannot tell you, exactly how it's all going to work, but I have been doing this for a while and I've got solar on my own roof. So I know for sure that the 30% of your project you can receive back in the form of a tax credit. And actually, it's more of a rebate now. The IRA, which is the Inflation Reduction Act that the Biden administration got approved, I think last year, has done a lot of good things to solidify the industry and to make it easier for people to go solar. And so we were losing some tax credit, and it was starting to kind of downsize from 30 to 26 and to 22. So this legislation, the IRA, pushed it back to 30%, and it includes storage. And now nonprofits are now eligible. So all businesses, churches who may, again, be nonprofits that don't have a quote unquote tax appetite can still take advantage of the 30%, and they will get that back in the form of a rebate check. It used to be purely a credit. And so if you didn't have an appetite, there was no need for a tax appetite. You have a need for the credit, but now it's a rebate. So everyone can take advantage, whether you have a tax appetite or not. And then there are incentives for low and moderate income communities and homes. So a lot of good things that have yet to be realized because this is the year that it's in effect. And so next year is when those tax rebates will start to hit the system. And I think you'll see an acceleration once we know it's real. So it'd be good to go ahead and get it in now. We are already in November. It's hard to get a contractor probably now because everybody's loaded up, but if you can find a good one, this will be a good time because it won't be long before 2024 is here and you should start to be able to get those credits. REAP is the Rural Energy Assistance Program for the rural areas. Here's a link there. Have not personally had a lot of experience with it, but I know of people who have taken advantage of it. This, after the REAP, is the 2022 Renewable Energy Tax Credit form. So it's a real thing. You can click on this to get your form. It is for 2022, but you could still click on it and see what it looks like. It probably will be some good changes to it for 2023, but it'll probably be in this same site. So it's form 5695. And this is something that if your accountant isn't familiar with it, you can just go ahead and click it, print it out, and then you all can sit down and work through it together. If you have an accountant, if you do it yourself, then you can. I think it's pretty simple. I've looked over it, and it's pretty simple. It also includes energy efficiency as well. So it's a good form to know about. And then I said I won't get into local policy, but we're in Nashville, me and Kathy are, and so this was a good article that came out recently, how we are getting some more rooftop help. So a lot of folks, are saying, what are all the incentives, that we have, and for a long time, all we had here in Nashville or in Tennessee or in TVA area was um, the federal tax credit, 30%. So now it looks like places like Nashville and others are wanting to also help incentivize people to go solar. So you can read that article if you're in the Nashville area, the NES area, and then you can also ask about, to whoever your local power company is, what are you doing to help incentivize? Look at what Nashville's doing. So thought I'd put that there for all of us. Here's some annual events that happen every year. Two of them have passed already, but there's one that's coming up. This is a great way to stay informed on what's going on with solar and renewable energy. The one that's upcoming is the TREEDC or TREEDC Summit. That's going to happen in Cookeville at Tennessee Tech. You can register there November 16th. One that we try to participate in is the ACES National Solar Tour. It's typically the first weekend in October, but you can click on this link and see some of the past tours. And, ACES is just huge on education. And that's, the reason and why we're glad to be affiliated with ACES, because we want to educate and celebrate folks that have gone solar. And so this National Solar Tour does that. It celebrates people who have gone solar, and some folks are able to travel to these different sites and talk to the people that put it in and what their experience is. So that's passed already, but you can still click there and see what you can learn. And then the Tennessee Valley Solar Conference that is put on by Tennessee, not us, not TSEA, but Tennessee. And it's somewhere around the third week in October. It's like a Wednesday, Thursday type of event, and it is growing. And I believe it's going to be in Huntsville. Don't hold me to that. That's what I heard from their executive director. That's probably going to be in Huntsville next year. So please do put that on your calendar and try to make it. Well, folks, I hope that was a good, nice overview, one-on-one type introduction to solar power. We invite your comments and your questions. You can put those on the Facebook page or the Zoom link when we, or the YouTube link when we get it up. But we want questions because we want to try to provide answers and get you excited and learning about this really great resource that has so many benefits to it, and don't want you to be afraid of it or thinking it's just way too expensive or that it's toxic or any of these things. We want to try to debunk all those things that are out there. And some things that may be true, and we'll be honest about those things as well. So again, thank you for listening. Thank Ms. Kathy for getting this all set up. Look out for the next series or the next webinar in our series.
Thank you so much, Jason. And I don't want to let you totally off the hook yet.
Okay.
Because I want to explain to everyone, I'm considered the secretary, right? So I have no, except I know the sun is here and I was born not long after 54. Okay, so I know about solar energy that way. But some things stuck out in my head too. So I do want to, if you don't mind, capture just a few questions that maybe other people will have, and that'll kind of catapult people wanting to ask other questions later. And it'll give us ideas of how deep we want to go for the next series that we do for the rest of the year, or pretty much for 2024. So some things stuck out. Like I said, I learned a lot. So I'm so grateful that we did this. And part of our mission, we know, is about awareness, education. One of the things you kind of alluded to, you did it very ethically and cautiously, but it stood out to me that even though it's about that supply and demand, right? So we're hoping that the more people get educated and are able to get on, with solar, some of those laws might change. We see a big difference in Tennessee versus other states. I see that as you were talking. Like I said, you did very well just telling us the facts. We can kind of see for ourselves that other part. So to I want you to be a part of also making sure that they understand that they can join us as a member. I think
Yes.
that's one of the first steps
Yes.
of education awareness, and then being a part of that, making sure we have voices into what we want in our state. And that goes for anybody in other states too, but we're covering Tennessee. So making sure that they are aware when these policies and things change, or they don't, sometime in government, they don't realize there's other voices until there's other voices.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a good way to do it. So if you could explain how that membership works.
Go to ases.org, aces.org, you will see a wealth of information. Mm-hmm. We just kind of want to distill that to Tennessee specific information. And so as such, having the relationship with ACES, we do a joint membership with ACES. So you go to aces.org. I think you will see a tab. It's not in front of me right now for membership. And then if you scroll down, last time I looked, it was about 3 or 4 scrolls down, it's a long page. You will see that there are certain states that do the joint membership. Mm-hmm. And so make sure you see that, because if you just join ACES alone, we don't get any personal benefit at the Tennessee chapter to do the things like the webinars and going to these different conferences and putting on the National Solar Tour and bringing in speakers. It just goes directly to ACES. So make sure you do that. If you're confused about that in any way, just give us a direct call and let us know, and we will make sure that you are added to our roles and that we get the benefit of your membership. So yes, we do a joint membership with ACES. Go to aces.org, or you can go to our site and do it through our site, which is tnsolarenergy.org, tnsolarenergy.org. And so either way is great. And we'll make sure, like I said, that we try to keep you educated. And like Kathy said, we want your voice. Even if you don't have solar energy, your voice is important, because people need to know we need better access to solar energy. We need more incentives for people who would not otherwise be able to afford solar, or just not in a place where they can have solar. Like, y'all gonna have to blame Kathy because she's pulling me in the weeds, but I'm happy to go here. But there may be a situation where you live where there are very big mature trees, and that's a beautiful thing. It provides shade and homes for birds, and that's wonderful. But you want solar energy. So then there's an opportunity for things like community solar. And if we don't, let the people who make the policies know that, because when you make an installation like that, it has to connect to the grid. It can't go directly to your house. So it has to connect to the grid. And if those policies aren't there for that to happen, which I will give TVA some credit, and NES, I will say NES. And I think this is happening around the state, that TVA is working with the LPCs to provide some what they call flexibility, so that LPC can go out and do things directly with solar power for its customers. So the keyword there is flexibility. If you are wherever you are and you are in one of those situations where you need some help with getting solar, then talk to your LPC about what they are doing with their flexibility. I don't know the answers to that. It could be we are doing nothing with it. It could be, oh, this is what we're doing with it. But that's the key word. What are you doing with the flexibility that you've been given from TVA, and kind of see where that takes you? And again, just your voice alone, asking the question, goes a long way. And whether that's an email, phone call, or going to a board meeting, it's important to make your voice heard.
Right. And I think that's good because there's a lot of, even our organization being a part of those meetings, it lets you know the policies that are changing. And there are certain organizations that will tell you how we as a collective can still, you're individually doing it, but it's at the same time, we're sending emails to whoever our Senate or, whoever the LPCs are, the powers that be. How about that? So I still think this is the first level of it, and getting that knowledge of what is going on. So you're not the only one just asking, understanding that there's several people asking, but how do we go about this as a collective to put a little bit more pressure? Because one of the things that's about these weeds a little bit, because that's something that stands out. Like, for instance, I heard you say, I wrote a lot of things down, but I'm not going to take too much time. 1 hour covers a year.
That is correct. This enough sun, and I stay on this. Enough sunlight and solar power falls on the earth in 1 hour that can power the entire planet, not just the United States, but every other place on earth for an entire year. So that is the amount of power that's coming down from the sun.
Wow.
And our only limitation is our ability to harness it and use it. So again,
but you all have the ability, but that's what you all are doing when you're putting solar, right? You're still harnessing it.
We are harnessing.
So really the only limitation is a regulatory board because it's free. Because I heard you also say that most cities in the area of the city, unless you're in certain parts of the rural areas, you have to stay on the grid. Yes. You have to be connected to whoever that agency that, I think you said LPCs,
yes,
which for us in Tennessee ends up being still connected to TVA.
That is correct.
Wow.
For the most part, one way or the other, you're going to have to interconnect. And so, yes, that's why NES, TVA, MLGW, and all, and the LPCs and TVA are the major players. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to get around them, although you can go buy a panel right now, stick the wires, into, a battery and charge that battery. I mean, you can make power, but when you want to make it on a level that can power your home, which is connected to your local power company, that power mixes. And so that's called interconnection. And there's a lot of technical stuff that goes on when you're interconnected. So the LPC has to know that you're interconnecting, and then they get to start to regulate that.
So be clear, you guys. I don't want anybody going to do that. You cannot disconnect that box on your house. That is a federal offense. It's illegal. So do not do that. That's not what he's saying. He's just saying it is possible to create the electricity, but our laws dictate. So I'm still pushing. We gotta, this membership, even as far as connecting to us, we have someone representing as our board, because I'm the one, probably the only one that's not really engineering solar, right? Somebody either works or they have their own business. We even have a gentleman that lives off the grid. So we want to present that in the future too. But it's very important if we can talk to the schools, all the way down to elementary and up, our college students being aware of being in this area of engineering, solar. There is a shortage. I know there's some laws that passed, like you said, they're trying to get more rooftops. Actually, here in Nashville, we made some good strides of even our government buildings. So that allows our businesses to get more work. I'm definitely going to make sure that all the links that Jason provided, we have access to those on both Facebook, on our YouTube. So we're trying to spread the word. And I think the more that we need you all to spread it as well, our local nonprofits all over Tennessee, if you need Jason to speak or one of our people to speak. We're trying to connect with college students so they can represent as well, and possibly be brand ambassadors with us. I think it's very important with this housing thing going on. You know, that's high enough. So why are we paying for something that could be free? Jason said it, I didn't. No, it's kind of obvious. If you have a brain,
it's
it's
kind of
obvious.
obvious, right? That's the point. I'm
You
just
just
kind of.
said the sun that we have no control of can power a whole planet. So we got to push, we got to do some things, especially us adults 18 and over, be a part of your communities and really know what's going on. And I think the first step, I'm going to just put it out there, is being a part of our organization, which is part of bigger organizations as well. So, all right. I didn't get you too far in there, did I?
No, I want to keep going, but I'm showing restraint right now. So,
Yeah, we got to restrain right now. And please, please,
mm-hmm.
please, any questions you all have, please make those comments. We will be addressing those as well. And like I said, it will give us an idea of to go deeper. And we even talked about having a technical, because when they're talking technical, they lose me. But for those who want to be in there, we want to have some little classes like that where you all, the techie people, I'm nerd, but I'm not techie like that, can
She's been
actually
humble. She's
listen.
techie.
Yeah, so you can hear how, okay, put this DC, AC, all of those things. Please, we want those comments and support from you all. Thank you again, Jason. This has been good. I'm looking forward to the next ones, and even our other board members who are excited and wanting to be a part too. So this will be good.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Just the beginning.
All right, you guys, you have a good day.